What's going on there, guys? We back with another one. We have to talk about Shannon Sharpe settling with Gabriella Zuniga, the OnlyFans model, young female who he was involved with, who those tapes were coming out. Tony Busby, his law firm, they were releasing clips of these tapes. And Shannon Sharpe, you hear big black man chokes little white girl. Shortly after that, ESPN forces him to say he's taking time away, but really, he had to go away. We can see in his podcast the sponsors like Boost that used to be in the background no longer there in his podcast anymore. And so we also saw Shannon Sharpe take a brief leave. Him and Ocho wasn't on the episodes. It was TJ Houshmandzadeh and Debo. And that's James Harrison. I know people call DeMar DeRozan Debo as well, but James Harrison obviously was on there. And I just kind of want to provide an update on the female, because Shannon Sharpe allowed himself to be played like a fool, allowing himself to be recorded in a compromising position where, he obviously didn't want certain role plays to hit the internet, which they could have. So Gabriella Zuniga, the girl who was suing Shannon that has received a nice 8-figure sum from him, says, "Today I have decided to retire from OnlyFans. Thank you for the incredible support you've shown me over the past few years. This community has given me a life I could have never imagined. I'll still be active on social media and have several new projects in the works that I can't wait to share. I'm truly excited for this next chapter. I love you all forever and ever." So Shannon Sharpe allowed OnlyFans model, to use him as a come up, and really think he's doing something, messing with these young girls. And Monique had warned him. Shannon, you need a woman your age, that will be there for you, more like a wife. You don't need to be trying to run these little 20-year-old, 19-year-old girls. And Shannon is seeing now, he's lost over 8 figures fooling with this girl. And remember what Dan Le Batard said? For those that don't remember, let's revisit that.
Yesterday on the show, I said I think it's unlikely Shannon Sharpe works at ESPN again, and I thought all of what Shannon did was carefully staged in order to make it look like that was his decision, and he did ESPN a favor by making it look like all of that, because I don't think ESPN wanted to make any of that worse than it already was by firing him, suspending him, or even commenting on any of what's happening there. So Shannon can exist doing the stuff that he's doing on the stuff he owns, but the stuff that other people own, he cannot do whatever he wants. But the argument against what I'm saying is, well, he moves the needle, Dan. There aren't that many who do. Like, he actually produces ratings, and then where does Disney or any corporate giant have to do the math of, in my lifetime, that all happens around someone, and they are not likely to return to Disney. But in this particular case, you have a totally different media landscape, and you've also got Disney getting in the business of, we're going to rent some of these mercenaries, free agents, people from the outside. We're going to give them platforms. We're not going to own them. We're going to give them independence so they can do other stuff. And so maybe under these circumstances, I've got it wrong. I don't think we'll see Shannon Sharpe on ESPN again, but maybe ESPN needs whatever it is that Shannon Sharpe is doing, because he is actually one of the few needle movers. But it's not because of likability. And I like him, but it's not because of likability. It's because he gives opinions. And the two things almost, I would say, can't coexist to be done the very best way that returns ratings, given that you're trying to do something that appeals to the broadest net of people, and therefore you're going to have people who watch you because they like your cruel. Stephen A. Smith's judgment of people has gotten more performative and more wrestling than it's ever been, at least in part, because it's obviously rewarded.
It works. And it's funny how things have come full circle with Shannon Sharpe calling out Ocho for being unprofessional, being late to the show 5, 10, 15 minutes. You know, they may start the show a little late. Obviously, you have the audience waiting, and you've talked to the advertisers, will be on from this time to this time at least. And so they expect to have their product shown for that amount of time. I understand that. But what Ocho did can be worked with. You might get a warning from some advertisers or whatever, but um, as far as what Shannon did, they're definitely gonna pull the plug on a situation like that. After Shannon has been embroiled and involved in several uh, allegations like this. He's been in other little controversies with podcasts, which, that sells, but when you put everything together, you think about the issue with Mike Epps, where they were supposed to meet up and in Indiana, and Shannon was talking about he was coming with that energy. Um, and then you think about like his podcast when it was doing numbers, it was already controversial. So this is why some people are applauding, what's going on with Shannon Sharpe, and I feel like it was because their names was mentioned in an unfavorable light on Club Shay Shay specifically. But Shannon Sharpe, one thing I will say is his ascension in the media space happened so rapidly. He took off and he shot straight for the stars when he was able to get from under Undisputed. And you saw that not only Undisputed died, but a lot of that network has faltered since his departure. Shannon Sharpe was bringing eyes single handedly to that network. And, to see him get off, go create something on Undisputed like Club Shay Shay where he comes in, he's got, his mouths, his yak and all that, and turn that into a big podcast, have the big Cat Williams interview, and everything be on the up and up. For him to do that, right? And then he's on ESPN a couple days a week. For him to squander that running behind some young cheeks, really shows. Like we just seen the CEO at this company, get caught on the jumbotron, losing, so much of what he had worked hard for, and you can lose a lot, just doing the wrong things. Now he was having an affair, and that woman was about his age, but the fact remains, like chasing women, the wrong way can lead you to a place where you lose so much of what you work for. Like this takes 50, 60, 70 years, to get in these positions that some of these people is in, and all for it to come crashing down in an instant, in a moment, because of a scandal. And Tony Busby, women go to these type of lawyers, and they don't have to have something that's 100% truthful. Now, they said that Shannon had a rough, ex with this girl over 100 times. And so if they're recording this and he's being brutal and on those images and they can release that, because the girl already does OnlyFans, it ain't nothing that she's not comfortable showing. Um, with that leaking the internet, he knows with that. And then you think about the scandal with the phone call, or the live, my bad, the live allegedly leaking, but obviously it was planned. You go on IG Live, you got to go a few steps. But you look at Shannon Sharpe and, those things, he obviously wouldn't want that out there because ESPN kind of forgave him right away for the phone leakage thing. But he made sure not to be in the frame, right? Now, this girl probably has some things where who knows what he did. I don't want to speculate what he might have done, but we know it's so egregious that she got 8 figures. The money she was seeking, she got. They just started with a high number like 50, but probably got over 15, 16, and that's all she wanted. So, man, for you to settle for that, I mean, people sometimes settle for a lot less because of the headache, but giving you 16, 17 million is a headache. And how some people say it will cost more to handle all the legal proceedings and everything, I can't imagine it would cost more than 16, $17 million. So you've been caught in like a compromising position, and that's my take. And I remember how hard you were on Deshaun Watson and others, and the way Shannon always talked from a moral um, perspective. What his grandma instilled in him. What his big brother. We never see Sterling in this type of stuff. Um, but Shannon, we always see him dealing with this. And I even think about a story he's told. He was caught up when he was younger in this hotel with this girl, and then the boyfriend came, and Shannon, was wondering what was gonna go down then. You be in a lot of situations with women that you could potentially lose your life or lose your wealth with. And I think you need to sit down and sit with that brother at your age right now and really hold that close to your chest and let that, help dictate how you move going forward. Because I think these things are warnings, and nothing's a bigger warning than losing this much of your wealth at one time. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Till next time. Peace.